Hello everybody, welcome back to 40 Days with Dietrich, our journey through the season of Lent. Today's passage is again taken from his book Ethics. You will hear the play of penultimate and ultimate in this passage. The title given to this excerpt is called God's Final Judgment. And again, I want to remind you that all of these titles are just really arbitrarily given for the sake of this book here. Bonhoeffer didn't give titles to each of his paragraphs. But the title given to this is God's Final Judgment. Bonhoeffer writes, Jesus Christ the Crucified. That means that God speaks final judgment on the fallen creation. The rejection of the whole human race without exception is included in the rejection of God on the cross of Jesus. Jesus' cross is the death sentence on the world. Here, human beings cannot boast of their being human, nor the world of its divine origins. Here, human glory has come to its final end in the image of the beaten, bleeding, spat upon face of the crucified. Yet crucifixion of Jesus does not mean simply the annihilation of creation. Human beings will live on under this death sign of the cross, living on towards judgment when they despise it, but living on towards salvation when they accept it. The ultimate has become real in the cross, a judgment on all that is penultimate, but at the same time as grace for the penultimate that bows to the judgment of the ultimate. I like in this passage how Bonhoeffer is holding both grace and law in typical kind of that Lutheran dichotomy, but how he's holding that the cross is this place of life and it is this place of grace. But it is also God's definitive statement against sin, death, evil, and the fallenness of creation. Sometimes we don't like the language of judgment. It sounds very, very horrible. It sounds so unloving. That's what we hear in our eyes. But the cross is this judgment against a world that destroys itself, and a sin that destroys humanity, and power structures which destroy humanity. The cross is a definitive statement that is not the way. And how is that the statement? Because Christ came. And this is what the sinful humanity did. And so it is a sign, a visual sign. Bonhoeffer's really strike language, a beaten, bleeding, and spat upon sign. That is the end. That is what is led to when we engage in life from that fallen, sinful way. And so there is this sense of inherent judgment upon that. And yet, there is grace. Because this is not just the annihilation of the world. God could very justifiably just, snap God's fingers and say, all right, we're done. Enough. Right? And yet the cross is not that. It is not this thunderbolt from heaven, let's destroy everything kind of judgment. It does provide the sign of this is what awaits a life which is rooted in sin and death. And yet for those who recognize that the cross is also God's entering into the violence of humanity in order to offer redemption, it is also a sign of life. It is also a grace for everybody who accepts it. And so it's a judgment that this world, rooted in death or violence and the fallenness of creation, is not the ultimate reality. And so we have to look to our salvation in the crucified. God bless you as you journey through your season of Lent, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.